So, good evening and welcome to this public workshop of the Board of Education. I am Board President Robert Silkworth. Tonight, the board will learn more about the new strategic plan on which Superintendent Mark Bedell, members of his staff, and a number of community members have been working since the fall. This workshop is open to the public. However, no public comment will be taken. This workshop is being broadcast live on AACPS TV, which can be found on Channel 96 on Comcast and Astound, and Channel 36 on Verizon. High definition broadcast can be seen on Channel 996 on Comcast, Channel 496 on Astound, and Channel 2136 on Verizon. So thank you so much for joining us here this evening. Dr. Bedell.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. It is indeed an honor to be here tonight to basically give an overview of our strategic plan to the school board and to the community at large. There's just a couple of folks that I really want to publicly thank. And you can see in here, we have a pretty strong turnout. We intentionally wanted to invite a number of our steering committee members. We had more than 70 members, students and employees, and members of the school board who participated in this process. I had a chance to offer some remarks to all of these wonderful folks and earlier, so I won't really relive all of that again, but I did want to say I am extremely proud of the product that we created. You will have an opportunity tonight to see what has come in terms of a community-driven plan. This was something that I charged Michael Dickerson, our chief of staff, with this task. And honestly, he told me to pretty much get out the way and really allow for the community to put this strategic plan together. I trusted him. I did get out the way. I didn't do a whole bunch of lobbying. And what I feel that we have here also captures the essence of what I believe we as a community should be focusing on. And so, Mr. Dickerson, I don't know at this juncture if you want to take over here and let's get into the workshop.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Bedell, Chair Silkworth, members of the board, this incredible steering committee behind us. And before I get into my remarks, if you all would just stand so everyone can see exactly who took part in this process. Thank you all. Thank you all. What Dr. Bedell didn't share with you all was I got here on July 1st, 8 o'clock in the morning, and at 9 o'clock he said, "You're in charge of this new strategic plan." And so I said, I hope they have an anti-hazing policy because I felt like I was being hazed. No, actually, the truth is that the process was well on its way when I arrived, thanks to Dr. Bedell, Ms. Monique Jackson, and they really transitioned me into taking over. And what I liked most about what happened was they brought in a third party, independent facilitator to walk us through the process. I've been in many school districts where we've done a strategic plan, and quite frankly, central office will get in the room and we'll put a plan together, and that's a strategic plan for the school district. This was so much different from that, and really it was hands off. Dr. Bedell is exactly right. And that's because we turned it over to Pete Lyda, who will come up and introduce our other colleagues here in a moment. But they really turned it over to this 70-member strategic steering committee who really put in a lot of hours, a lot of nights, and really got at it. But they weren't the only ones. We had focus groups all around the county. We had central office advisory that took part in putting this together. Parents, students, and staff from all over the district. This really is a community strategic plan. And the final thing I'll say before I turn it over to Pete is it's a living document. We will and expect to see changes in this document over 18 months or so. We'll take a look at it to make sure the things we say we want to do, we are actually doing it. So I couldn't be more excited to get to tonight. The final product looks amazing. There were a lot of folks who took part in that, and I'll talk about that at the very end of the presentation. But for now, I want to turn it over to Pete Lyda, who has just been phenomenal, Insight Education Group. And of all the strategic plans I've worked on, this has been by far the best product, and most of that has to do with Pete Lyda's work. Pete.
Thank you very much for the kind words, Michael. Good evening, President Silkworth, excuse me, Anne Arundel County School Board, Dr. Bedell, Anne Arundel County community. It's great. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. I'm excited to share with you the next strategic plan, the proposed strategic plan for Anne Arundel County School District, Belong, Grow, and Succeed. Before we get started, I want to go ahead and introduce myself. As I said, my name is Pete Lyda. I'm a partnership manager for Insight Education Group. Insight is an educational consulting organization that works with districts all over the country. Prior to joining Insight, I worked in Colonial School District in Delaware, so I'm not too far away from here, about an hour and 40 minutes, right up 301 to Hockessin, Delaware. And in Colonial, I started out as a special education and elementary education teacher, principal, over to district office, and was assistant superintendent and deputy superintendent before deciding to join the Anne Arundel, the Insight team. I haven't joined the Anne Arundel team, but let me know if you have an offer. But anyway, I really appreciated all of the experience that I had there, and that brought me over to Insight. And so now at Insight, I've had the opportunity to work on helping districts support their recruitment and retention plans, as well as strategic planning, doing some leadership coaching, as well as conducting district reviews in Ohio. Insight is an education consulting organization that is pretty unique in that one of the ways that we approach our partnerships is by rolling up our sleeves and really getting to know where the assets are in the organizations that we're working with, so we can lift those up in the spirit of what's best for kids and for the community. And we're proud to do so all over the country. And so we have the opportunity to impact over about 4 million students each year, which is a pretty incredible responsibility, one that we take very seriously. And so you can see the size of the districts that we work in kind of vary. So we work in some very large urban districts, and also some very small urban and small rural districts all over the country. And so we're excited to bring and share the experiences that we have to different communities, because the challenges, although lots of times they're really similar, the opportunities for improvement differ from district to district and school to school. Tonight, I'm excited to have 5 members of the steering committee join us. We had an incredible group of individuals, and so I'm going to go ahead and just briefly introduce them and ask them to just stand up, or just raise your hand. So we have Mary Dodone, Linda Chandler, Jason Semenoff, Mizetta Wilson, Anna Harding. And as they are called forward to speak during their presentation, they'll introduce themselves and share a little bit more about their experience, and while also sharing the components. Also, again, I have to recognize this amazing steering committee. They were fabulous, and thank you so much for coming out for long evenings and workshops. And one thing I will say about strategic planning, you put in a full day of work, and then you're asked to really cognitively engage for 2.5 or 3 hours at a time, and that's not an easy thing to do. And so a big round of applause for you all. All right. So tonight, the overview is to provide you an overview of the process. We'll talk a little bit about that. so you can understand the experience that individuals went through, and then also how we came to the plan that you have in front of you. We're going to share that draft strategic plan, and we'll walk you through elements of that, or we'll walk you through elements of that, and then we'll provide you with an overview of the end of the implementation and monitoring process. But before we begin, I think it's important to just share with you what is a strategic plan for a district, and what is the opportunity that a strategic plan holds. And so one thing that we spend a lot of time in at the beginning is to make sure we're calibrated around the strategic plan. Very few people spend as much time as I do on strategic planning. And so, this may be a once in a lifetime experience to be a part of a strategic planning process or steering committee. Others may have had, one or two at bats at it. And so we want to make sure we're all calibrated around, where we're heading. And so we know that it's something that helps to keep districts focused, disciplined, and accountable. We also know that it's a living document, so that when there's an opportunity or a need to think differently about where the strategic plan is bringing us, then we'll be able to make those changes. And then also we want to make sure, and you'll see this elevated later on, that there is alignment. We want to make sure that there is alignment between the work that's going on at the district level with the things that matter most, and also at the campus level. It was definitely a plan for the community, by the community. And so Dr. Bedell and Michael and the senior leadership team were very insistent upon that my job was to really elevate the voices of the community so that we could help develop the next strategic plan. And again, to be a community-driven plan, we know that it's going to be a 5-year plan. And so there's going to be individuals that come and go in leadership positions. And when you create a community-driven plan, it helps make it so that it's almost barricaded from outside influences or other influences. And so it keeps the course steady. We started the engagement process with the community back in September. You may recall receiving an email and completing a survey, and thank you very much for doing that. But we had, as you can see, about 20,000 respondents between middle school and high school students and the adults in the community, really trying to better understand what are their hopes and dreams for their children, for the community, for the schools. What are the major priorities, and what are the characteristics and assets and traits that we hope that all students will have when they enter into adulthood. We also held a number of focus groups. And so thanks to the incredible team here in Anne Arundel County, we were able to host and facilitate 46 focus groups. Several of them were virtual, so it gave opportunities for evening virtual engagements, as well as on-campus sessions as well. Those on-campus sessions were held throughout the county, and that was a really important part of the work that we were doing. So in addition to making sure that we had focus groups that were spread out throughout the county, we also held our steering committee meetings throughout the county as well. And I didn't say this, but when looking back at the survey responses, it's also important to note that the responses came from throughout the county. So we had really broad representation. There are so many different factors and people that are providing their voice and expertise to the strategic plan. And so we had, of course, the steering committee, which I'll going to turn that over to Mary in a second to talk a little bit about. But we also had the leadership team. We had the central office advisory group that met every other Monday for about 30 to 45 minutes. And they helped us to help provide guidance and make sure that the plan was on the right track and the experience was also on the right track. We also met with the cabinet to make sure, again, that senior leadership was well aware and supporting the work that was happening. We had the steering committee, and then we had our focus groups. And so a lot of voices that were contributing to the strategic plan. And then we have our steering committee. And so Mary, I'm going to ask if you wouldn't mind come up and telling a little bit about the steering committee and your experience.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Mary Didoni. I was appointed to the steering committee from the NAACP, but those of you who know me know that I represent other groups as well. And I think that's going to be important as I start to tell you what it was like, at least for this one member of the steering committee, to go through the process. I'm also moderately affiliated with a group you may know as the LGBTQ plus Coalition. And I am the chair of the board of El Centro de Ayuda, representing immigrants within Anne Arundel County and especially Hispanic immigrants. And I carry all of those in my heart and speak to all of those when I participate in something such as the Strategic Planning Committee. I want to start with a metaphor that's not going to hold up, but the metaphor is making sausage. I'm baking a cake, but really it's making sausage, which isn't nearly as bad as it sounds. Because frankly, you take a bunch of disparate ingredients and with a great recipe and process, you blend them into something delicious. And I think that's what happened here. And I'm one of the disparate ingredients, and the process is outlined for you essentially on the table of contents of this strategic plan itself because it represents what we went through. Always we would come together as this group, many different representatives from many different groups. And at first they were seating us, that being Pete and his cohorts, them. They were seating us in strategic ways that I couldn't quite figure out. And that went on for quite a while. And what I discovered what came of that for me at least, was that we were forced by that seating together to engage with ideas, not personalities. The they broke down and it just became us working on this. And that is brilliant. I cannot commend Dr. Bedell and the board enough for committing to using a professional outsourced group to lead this effort. We spent a lot of time on things like vision and mission and the core beliefs. And always Pete would say to us, now, once you get the words, ask what do the words mean? Do they say what you need it to mean? Do you need to qualify those words? So you're going to get a bunch of words. And this is going to be your tool. Board, this is your tool. Look through the words because we put our hearts, our souls, our hopes, our experience, our dreams into this. And not just us, all of those people and all those focus groups and all of those students and all of those parents. Look for the meaning here, please. I want to tell you 3 specific stories that stand out for me. Where do I start? Second or third meeting, I was seated next to Chief of Police Jackson from Annapolis, and we were to come up with our core beliefs. It was a core belief session. And at my little table, and I thought we were all like-minded people, we came up with the core beliefs, and Chief Jackson said, wait, safety isn't on there. And I said, well, that's, I thought, didn't come out of the mouth. That's a police-like thing to say. But I asked, what do you mean by safety? And it encompassed what he needed to think of safety because the shootings aren't stopping. The drug deaths aren't stopping. And it encompassed what I needed to think of safety. So here I was with someone I thought very much like. And by asking, what does that mean? I saw it more deeply. And then we must have had 12 tables. At the end of the session, every table had their list of items up. I'll tell you, safety didn't come into that room spoken when we started, and it was on every single list, and it's here. And again, think what safety means. You're going to find what you need in here, but don't just go looking for the 2 or 3 words to substantiate your argument. Look for what's being said from the community in here. Next thing I want to talk about was, I'm not going to name any names, but there is a person I value now who was seated next to me at a table. And if you could think of the person you would expect to be most opposite to me in beliefs, I would be that for her and she would be that for me. Except as we sat there together and worked through the portrait of a graduate and the part where we're coming down to what our specific ways of achieving this going to be, and we were getting into the specific actions, I'd say, I'm not easy with that word. And she said, I'm not either. And what I found out was that we both saw the truth, the same meaning, because we were talking about principles. We weren't there as antagonists, and we weren't talking about personalities. And I think as I get older and lose memories, the truth of that memory will be the one that stays with me. And then there was a session where we had a chance to meet with most of, perhaps all of Dr. Bedell's cabinet and the staff, and take all our questions to them as we really worked out the nitty-gritty of what our specific goals wanted to be. And what I found was that I could go to table to table to table. By now, they were letting us select our own groupings as individuals, but then they carted us around all these tables. And at every table, I learned that whatever portion of the cabinet I was talking to, there was deep appreciation for the concerns being brought forward by us, and that they were learning from each of our little groups as we went around, because we as a community brought in additional insights. Well, where do I want to go from here? It was a great experience. There's one other story that sticks out for me. In about January, I had the chance to attend the National School Board Association Equity Conference in DC. And I went into a section after lunch on equity goals. Sounded about right. And they started out presenting their strategic plan. And I'll tell you, the format looked a whole lot like this. And the table of contents looked a whole lot like this. And I may have even seen their strategic plan in one of our planning sessions. But their content was different. Their goal was different. And what I realized was we couldn't do what they wanted to do, and they couldn't do what we wanted to do, because their version of this reflected their community and their demographics. This reflects your community, your demographics. So I'm going to return to that plea. Or being more aggressive, I'd say our demand is respect this, respect us. Look for the wisdom and the heart and the hope in it when you use it. And please, please use it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mary. And there is a method to the madness.
Yeah.
And yes. And you have to trust the process, for sure. And thanks everybody for on the steering committee for allowing us to rearrange your tables and put you in assigned seats, which probably hasn't happened for you in a long time. So, but it forces communication. It forces an opportunity to share and learn and grow, with one another, and over food, which is always nice too. So as we've shared, we had 70 steering committee members. They didn't attend every single session, but one of the things that we discussed at the outset, when we were meeting to talk about the initial design, I think the leadership team was a little anxious about having 70 steering committee members because that's just not typical. But again, I asked them to trust the process, and the process proved to be very fruitful and very, very productive. Here's a cadence of the topics that we discussed, and one thing that you may not necessarily see completely in here was the refinement that went on. I mean, I see in meeting 3 we had that set up. But really, we were refining throughout the entire process, and it was really important to the group to get the words as closely to what our hearts were saying, and our minds were saying. So thank you for the steering committee for their patience in making that happen. But now it's time to unveil the plan. And so in front of you, you should have the plan. I think the one thing that I will say is that I hope that you find not only the content compelling and comprehensive, but also the design and layout to also to be very appealing. So now it's time to unveil the plan, and after several months of engaging with the community, here we are. So when you open up the plan, of course, as Mary had shared, there's the table of contents and then a letter from Dr. Bedell. And after that, we come to the core beliefs, which also which Mary had referenced. The one thing I will say is that, of course, the core beliefs, as it says there, they're the set of beliefs that guide the actions, behaviors, and decision-making processes of the district. But one thing that we tried to do, even as the steering committee, when we were first developing the core beliefs, we wanted to make sure that we started to ground ourselves in the core beliefs as we were making decisions about the future of the district. So to talk a little bit more about that, I'm going to ask Linda Chandler to come to the microphone. Give her a round of applause.
Thank you, Pete. President Silkworth, Board, Dr. Bedell, thank you for having me today. I'm Linda Chandler, proud principal at Old Mill Middle School South, but also proud parent and resident of Anne Arundel County, and proud alumni of Anne Arundel County, North County High School, as well as a wife of an educator. So education surrounds my life, okay? So core beliefs to me in this action couldn't have been done without the team, but what was an integral part of this core belief process is that we involved every layer of possible stakeholder that you could possibly think of. Because you can't have a core belief without making sure that everybody has an equitable opportunity to share what their core beliefs were. So I took this seriously, and I took this back actually to my school leadership team, my student voice, because I couldn't do this process and bring valuable feedback to this committee without seeking who I believe is the wisest people in my building, which are my students, right? Because they will always be honest with you. So I took this back to them, and I really dug deep into this process with them. But then I also took it to the next level, and I took it to my educators, my teachers, and my staff. And I had them do the same process that Pete modeled for us. And so through that process, we were able to come back at step 1 and step 2 and step 3, as you see through the phases of this strategic plan, to ensure that we could constantly loop back. So if we had questions for Pete or the team, or if we had deliberation or maybe disagreements about some of the words or verbiage, we brought it back to that table in a healthy, meaningful way. Because at the end of the day, the purpose of all of this is not about me. It's not about you as a board. It is about the students that we serve, the community that we serve, and the people that work here and surround and live around this area. So again, this is a process that involved all of those valuable stakeholders. But belonging as an alumni, someone who's lived here for over 41 years in Anne Arundel County, I came back here because I belong. I came back here because I have integrity and I have innovation and I felt safe, right? And as a woman that is a minority, I felt like I had equity at the table and I have a seat at the table. So all of these core values not just represent me, but represent our students, the people that will be our future educators, the people that will be our future engineers, people that might sit at our board one day, because the language of this represents them. And it represents everybody here sitting in this room. Because if you don't belong, if you don't have transparency and trust, and if you don't feel safe, our kids can't learn. And so without these integral parts of these core beliefs, if these are not what we say that they are, if we don't put it in writing for our community members, for them to believe of who Anne Arundel County is and what we represent, then we don't have their trust. We don't have that transparency. So we can't just write it here. As we say, you have to be about it, right? So this is us being about it. This is in writing. So at any point, any of our parents could say to us, well, that's in your strategic plan. So then if we're not doing it, then we need to change what we're doing. And so This actually is action. As a pillar in the community, as a mom in this community, as an educator in this community, as a principal of a schoolhouse, I then would take action if we weren't doing these things. Because this has to be who we are for our students, for our community, and for all of us sitting in this room. So this is not just something that's on a piece of paper. This is representative. So as you guys read through these words and dissect it, which I know you will, right? Make sure you're dissecting it with that lens, not just of the position that you hold, but all the titles and all the people that are going to be in front of you, because the language has to resonate. It resonates with me. It resonates with this amazing team sitting behind me, because we deliberated for weeks and weeks and weeks about it. And that's the reason why I was in week 1, because we knew it was something that was that important. So again, thank you for having us here today. Thank you for believing in us to develop this plan, but know that this core beliefs and these values are who we are in Anne Arundel County. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. I also just want to recognize that at the top of the document, and I don't have it in front of me. I think this was a really important moment for the steering committee to talk about, in order to ensure that we are creating an environment built on the promise of academic excellence and social emotional growth, we must take action through the following core beliefs. That was an important statement that really helps to bring to life the strategic plan and the core beliefs. And so as you move forward with the implementation of the plan in the next 5 years, it is important to lean into these core beliefs as an organization and make sure that you're teaching, leading, and learning through this set of core beliefs. The next two components of the plan were the vision and the mission. You're probably very familiar, of course, with vision and mission statements and so forth. The vision, it took a while to get to this level of clarity for the vision, but it's in its essence it's simplistic, but it describes the work very well in Anne Arundel County, and this is where we're hoping to go. That Anne Arundel County is a school community where everyone can belong, grow, and succeed. For the mission is intended to articulate what's unique about the district, and so and how do we get there? Who do we serve? And so when we think about the mission statement, again, there was a lot of iterations that went into this, and the final version here really lifts up the essence of the mission of the district, that AACPS harnesses the strengths of its diverse community and builds on a robust academic foundation to foster safe, joyful learning environments where students explore opportunities, discover their passions, and develop their skills. I think one of the things around from the steering committee was making sure that we really, really lean into the diversity of the community. It's a very large county, and in order to lift up the voices of those all over the county, it was really, really important to incorporate that element. Now we're going to talk about the portrait of a graduate. And so to do so, I'm going to ask a current student, Jason, to come up and share a little bit about the portrait and his impressions on this. Welcome, Jason Seminoff.
Good afternoon, President Silkworth, Dr. Bedell, members of the board. My name is Jason Seminoff Jr. I'm a proud 8th grade student at Chesapeake Bay Middle School, and I'm currently serving as the Crask Middle School coordinator. So that's how I got involved in this amazing opportunity. I first want to start out with, I feel so grateful to have been a part of this community, serving alongside all of these amazing educators and leaders in our school system. I can't tell you how grateful I am. It's been amazing, and I'm so glad my voice has been heard on this committee as a student, because in other counties and across our country, students' voices aren't often heard, and I'm so grateful that my voice was heard on this strategic plan. So, for those of you who don't know here tonight, the portrait of a graduate illustrates the characteristics, traits, and attributes that the community would like AACPS students to have and develop throughout their time. We as a committee came up with Future Ready, effective collaborator, critical thinker, curious learner, and empathetic community member. Out of these 5, I personally believe effective collaborator is the most important out of all of these. We came together as a diverse community of families, students, business leaders, and leaders of ACPS. And we were collaborating to create this plan. This plan would not be here without our collaboration from across the county. So if our students grow these effective collaboration skills, we know they can grow up to be great human beings and leaders of our society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jason. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate Jason and all of the students that participated on the steering committee. It is a unique opportunity, but your voice is incredibly important. And we, I think, are very fortunate to know that you are the future of Anne Arundel County. And I think that I heard you say that you were going to get into education. Is that right? So I don't want to miss up the opportunity. I think I saw Jessica earlier. So the recruiting starts now, right? We'll see you in 8 years, I think. Unless you want to graduate early, because there's a lot of early opportunities. You could probably graduate in 3.5 years from college. So thank you very much for that. I think the other thing I do want to lift up around the portrait of a graduate, that's important, right? So, and I've used this example with the steering committee multiple times, that if we want individuals to become effective collaborators as adults, that doesn't start when they get, we're not going to wait till Jason gets to high school and start focusing in on becoming an effective collaborator. Becoming an effective collaborator starts when you're in pre-K and you're outside in the playground and you're working together, right, in the sandbox. And then it looks a little different when you're in elementary school doing a science project, or middle school doing a math problem, or AP Calc when you get to high school. It looks different, but we have to start early. And so when I say that, what I mean is that the portrait has an opportunity to also change and influence how we teach, lead, and learn in schools. And so I want to encourage the organization to continue to think about the portrait and ways that it can change how school is for students. So the next area I want to talk about, of course, is the priorities. And I think this is the one that, again, that there's kind of people will say, oh, this is the meat of the plan. This is where we really get into it. And so to introduce the priorities today, I'd love to have Mazetta come on up and please share your experience as well.
Hi, everybody. Good evening, Dr. Bedell and members of the board. My name is Mazetta Wilson. I am a parent of a high schooler at Anne Arundel County at Annapolis High School. That's so crazy to me to say. When I got here, my baby was in elementary school. But I'm also a community member, and I also am the Community of Hope Director for the Partnership for Children, Youth, and Families. So I also work within the county, collaborating and trying to bring people together to do these kinds of things around other initiatives. And so this was an amazing experience because there are a number of different initiatives that I've tried to collaborate with people with, and I've never had 70 people agree on anything. So I appreciate your leadership, and I have learned a lot that I will take with me in other spaces. But as we were talking about the priorities, what we really wanted to do was create what we know is going to be the guide, right? So these priorities: achieving academic excellence, future readiness, those are things that are going to stand the test of time and really guide the work for all of us as we begin to use the strategic plan to create the best students possible, right? So investing in our staff, supporting the whole child, building and sustaining our future, those are like the key things that we always want to be making sure that anything that we do can be traced right back to that, right? That's how we hold ourselves accountable. That's how we make sure that we're doing what we said we were going to do and that we all agreed that we should be doing. And so the priorities, while we talk about it being the meat, for those of you who are vegetarian, I guess it would be the protein. The thing that you really do need, it's not always the most fun part, but it is the part that's going to get you where you need to go. And that's what we really want folks to think about when they think about the priorities and how we chose to set them, because it was very intentional. And when we talk about the language that we used and the intention behind each and every word that was used to create these priorities, it was painstaking to make sure that we listened and included all of those voices, and that those priorities really represent what we want to hold ourselves accountable to. So thank you for listening to me, and thank you for allowing me to be part of this process. It was amazing. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Maizetta. I think the other thing I will also offer is that when individuals were, asked to be a part of the steering committee, individuals were asked for a particular reason, but as you can see, they've have multiple roles and relationships with the district, which I think is also just another powerful opportunity that has occurred here, and one that was not necessarily, um, you know. A very specific, like, hey, we need to have somebody who is a community member and a parent, somebody who is a staff member, a parent, and an alumni, right, or alumnus. So it really just worked out really well that way. All right. So as you engage with the priorities, of just a few things I wanted to point out. I think it's important to understand, and you probably recognize this when you read them, is that there were several different components to each of the different priorities. One thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that we provided a description that is essentially an applied meaning when referencing that particular priority. And so we want to make sure that it's accessible to the public and to the community. And so we wanted to make sure we included that. We also felt it was important to share why this priority, why is this one so important? And that's not an easy thing to do. There's a lot of things that are going on in the district and a lot of competing priorities. And so so getting to the urgency statements was critically important. The next area, of course, that you see up there, you're probably most familiar with, is the goals. And so, one thing that was important to the steering committee and to cabinet is to make sure that when we look back in 5 years, we can really understand, whether or not we have met these goals. The attachment of metrics to those goals will be happening in the coming months, and so that will happen. But in this space and for the plan, it's left open ended. And then another important component was the commitment to equity. And so the steering committee felt as though really needed to make sure that equity lived in the plan. Of course, you saw that in the core beliefs, but we want to make sure that it's lifted throughout. And so the commitment to equity is a prominent part of the plan, and you'll find that not only in the equity commitment statements, but in the goals as well. So there are 5 priorities: achieving academic excellence, ensuring that all students are exposed to high academic expectations, rigorous curriculum, and an engaging learning environment to meet individual needs and continue to grow. Future readiness and transitional preparedness, ensuring that all Anne Arundel County Public School students are prepared to grow and prosper as they move through the system and successfully transition from the school system to adulthood. Investing in our staff. We can't do it without the staff, great staff. Ensuring a diverse and highly effective staff at all levels and positions. Supporting the whole child. This was a very significant priority throughout the surveys, conversations, et cetera, ensuring the social, emotional, mental, physical, and behavioral health and well-being of all students. And then building and sustaining our future. And so ensuring that safety and security and upkeep of district facilities, and of course, governance and efficient and equitable management and allocation of district resources, which really gets down to the strategic part of the work. There's a fixed amount, as you all are well aware, of resources, and we have to make sure that we are aiming those resources towards the things that matter most. Another thing that was really important is making connections to the blueprints and other areas of importance, such as ESSA, that the not only the steering committee but also district leadership wanted to make sure was embedded. And I think it was a very we're having facilitated a number of strategic planning processes, across the country. There's a number of different parts of the process for Anne Arundel and the plan from Anne Arundel that really stand out to me. But one that I'll say is the decision to have Shannon Pugh, who is here tonight, to coordinate the efforts of the blueprint and the strategic plan makes incredible sense. And you're fortunate to have Shannon. Shannon attended all of our steering committee meetings and met with me multiple times, and because we wanted to make sure that there was alignment, and alignment is critical, right? You know that the forces outside of the district can be pretty heavy at times, and it was important to make sure that there was alignment. And you can see that. I think this particular graphic really pulls it together. All right. So, this is another thing that I also shared with the steering committee, and of course with senior leadership team, that it can be a beautiful plan that sits on the shelf. But that's not what's going to happen here in Anne Arundel County. It is going to be a plan that goes into action, and to help talk about taking the plan to action, I'm going to invite Anna Harding to come up.
Good evening. I am Anna Harding. I'm an accountability data administrator. I am a proud graduate of Anne Arundel County Public Schools, class of 2004, Arundel High School. Can't hide that Wildcat pride. Went on to be a high school math teacher at Annapolis High School. Hi, spent many years there as a teacher, department chair, and intervention specialist. Was privileged to work alongside of President Silkworth at North County High School, Night Nation, and really gained a lot of experience, but I'm so honored to be in the role that I am today. While I've been up here before talking about ESSA, I'm excited to talk about something different today with you. I am not going to lie, I am an eager participant in most of what I do. So this strategic planning committee was no different. Admittingly, I was most excited about the data presentations and the dives that would follow, but the truth was I found beauty in the whole process. While it was both dynamic and iterative, it was really linear and strategic all along, which as a previous math teacher, I really liked. I got to be honest, I was skeptical in moments. There are times that I just wanted to go to ChatGPT and be like, write this sucker and let's move on. But I really feel like sitting in the room with individuals from a variety of different backgrounds forced me to dig in and do the work. And so I am grateful to have done that. There was one particular moment with Jason and my friend that is back here from the Center of Help, where we were really just parsing through the language, the diction that we were choosing. And it challenged me in a way that I am grateful for. And I felt like, even though it may have been challenging in moments, we walked away with something where everybody's voice was truly valued and considered when we wrote that. And so I would like it on the record publicly that I admit, Michael and Pete, you were right. I should trust the process. I have the privilege of presenting the implementation and monitoring section of the plan tonight. So in the plan, as you see, goals have been identified, and in my opinion, anybody can identify a goal. But it takes a very special district to bring those to fruition. And I have great news. You serve on the Board of Education of the district that will do so. Implementation is the process of putting our strategic plan into action. As my dad would say, it's where the rubber meets the road. We are going to put together some work groups, and those work groups are going to be the primary individuals responsible for identifying strategies, programs, and initiatives to really effectively make this plan come into action and that it's executed in the schools. That will include assigning people responsible, making sure that we have resources allocated, and having timelines that we are going to follow through on. Monitoring implementation is equally important, and it involves regularly tracking and looking at the plan and assessing it through, what it is. And I know accountability is in my title, but that's why I like this part, because I think what gets measured is what gets done. And so I look forward to, and I say this authentically, this is not a joke. I really am excited about creating scorecards. I think having a layer of transparency between the plan and the board and the community will allow us to build trust among one another and really call out what we need to do differently and potentially holes that are out there or things that we need to fill. And I think that matters. And so while some people may roll their eyes about data, it breathes life into me, and I think it will drive where we go next. So implementation and monitoring really has three key components, in my opinion. They need to be focused. That is about making sure that we can quickly identify areas that need to be addressed when they're not having the desired impact. We're going to really stay disciplined. We are going to make sure that strategies are being implemented uniformly across schools so that every kid has the access to opportunities that they need so that they can be successful. And last but not least, not because it's in my title, but accountability. Accountability is clearly defining the responsibilities, monitoring the progress so that we can hold ourselves to the standard that we say we're going to. We will have transparency between us and the community, and I believe in that. We believe in that. So while everybody did a really nice job with their components, I'm a little competitive. I think mine's the best. The work really happens in monitoring and implementation. And so in wrapping up, let's do this. Let's build a system where every stakeholder belongs so that they grow and ultimately show up with success. Thanks.
Everybody has their thing. That is for sure. No, it's great to be nerdy about some things, and I'm nerdy about strategic plans, so I'm right there with you. So, and thank you for pushing us along the way. All right, so what's next? Actually, before we get to this, yeah, we'll go with next. What's next? And so Bob, we're going to start with you with communication.
So thanks, Pete. I haven't done any communicating yet, so don't applaud. Thanks for letting me follow Anna. That was so President Silkworth, Vice President Frank, Dr. Bedell, members of the board. Thank you for this opportunity. I really don't know how to follow this group and the work that this amazing group has done, except to say that we will do our best to continue to communicate what this work is and the living document. I will say, as others have, I am a proud graduate of this school system. I graduated from Annapolis High School long before anyone ever thought of calling it a high. So that's how that goes. This plan is already online at www.aacps.org/strategic plan. So the public can view it starting now. We will continue to update it. We are moving, as I think all of you know, to a new website platform this summer, which provides a great opportunity for us to build this on the new website as a thoroughly interactive plan. We'll build links into it that will link to other parts of our website. We'll link to those scorecards. We will do almost all of it in native content, not PDFs. You can't have a living document that exists in a flat PDF. So it will be almost entirely in native content so that it can be translatable to those who need to use it in other languages. We're going to create short video explainers, and good news, Jason, we're going to try to use students to do that because we think they should be the ones who speak about this plan that impacts them the most. And then finally, to Anna's point, the scorecards will be posted online, so they will be thoroughly accessible for everyone. So we'll build more into this as it goes, but that's our plans at the moment. So thank you.
Also up next is priority teams. And so one thing that we'll be following is the formation of teams that will help to take the goals and the priorities and put them into action and develop strategic actions. We had some really incredible brainstorming sessions as a steering committee and have a lot to build off of. And so we're looking forward to getting those started soon. And then I'm going to turn it over to Michael.
So I think you've heard from each of the folks here the passion and the time that went into developing this plan. And if you talk to any of these members out here, you get the same stories of their individual reasons for being involved in the process, but also what it means to them. And so one more time, I want to thank this steering committee. It's amazing what they put together for this community. One more thing before we turn it over to a video we want to show you is to say that, and Dr. Bedell wants to make sure that we make this happen. Anything we do in terms of our agendas for department meetings, I would suggest the board might want to look at the same possibility is to align whatever your topic is with something from the strategic plan. That's one way of ensuring that you're doing the work that you said you're going to do. And so as an administration, we will be aligning all of our agendas with what strategic plan goal or what part of the vision and mission it addresses. And so we'll be doing that. As we said, we will be continuing to touch the document. It's a living document, so there will be changes. We want to be clear that 5 years from now, we don't know what issues we'll be involved with. And so we may have to adjust the plan along the way, and so we will do that. And so the final thing I'll say is that just very recently, there was a story done on NBC here in the Baltimore area that really captures what we think it means to belong, grow, and succeed. And so we want to show you that, and then we'll come back. I'll say a few more thank yous, and then we'll turn it over to you for questions.
And you're my rock star, right? 3 days a week, Edward Martinez Fernandez takes a bus from Arundel High School to Piney Orchard Elementary to work in the cafeteria as an intern.
He's a student with a disability. He's in a special education program that's providing him with the skills he needs to lead a successful adult life, independent living, vocational skills.
The first thing Edward does when he gets here is prep breakfast for the next day. And eventually, he'll be on the register. And that's not all. He will stop one task he's doing to check the line and make sure it's fully stocked. He keeps the drink stocked and he serves the kids their meals. Frida Chapman is the cafeteria manager.
He is amazing. He takes things seriously. He does the job more than anyone I have ever seen. I've been here like 10 years. He's the best employee I ever had. He does anything I ask him to do, even though he's done it like 20 times. He'll do it with a smile on his face. He takes initiative. He does the job perfect every time.
Edward says she helps him a lot.
I like Miss Frida.
20-year-old Edward joined the team last year.
And he greets the students every day with a smile, and he really embodies Dr. Bedell's vision of belong, grow, and succeed. And I would love for our students to see each and every day what success can look like, that it looks different for a lot of people.
Numbers, hey kids, it is nice.
And the kids like him.
I think he does amazing with it. I think he is kind. He always speaks polite.
One day, Edward may have a full-time job here. Lisa Robinson, WBAL TV 11 News.
And so that really is the essence of what we're getting at with the strategic plan, and that captured it very well. The last thing I'll do is thank a few people who made sure that we were at the right schools for every steering committee meeting, made sure everyone was fed because we were asking them to come late in the afternoon and stay into the night. Gail McCrary. There we go. Gail makes sure I get to where I need to go every day, but I can't thank her enough for what she did with the strategic plan. Deanna Natarian, is Deanna here? And Kelly McCrae, is she still? She left. She stayed a lot of late nights, so she can go. No, thank you all so much. Really, you've done a lot, including tonight's reception, and I think it's cut up, but board members, if you didn't get a chance, there was a cake that said belong, grow, succeed. It may just say succeed now, but take a look when you get a chance. And so with that, I want to say thank you again to the steering committee, to the cabinet members, and to the central office advisory that really worked over the last 8 to 9 months to put this together. We can't be more proud. And so with that, we'll turn it over to you for questions.
Wow. I mean, this presentation is absolutely amazing, amazing. So for my colleagues, we're going to be going in roll call order this evening, as opposed to the lights. And first is Miss Ellis.
I was not prepared for that. I guess I'll ask a procedural question. I don't have a lot of questions. I have some observations at my first look through here. Continue. Okay. Thank you. Yes, obviously, well, first of all, it's, I know Dr. Bedell wanted to make sure that this was not complicated. It was not too long and cumbersome, and it's very clearly written. So I do appreciate that. I want to thank everyone who was involved in this process. I know that it's a whole lot of work, and your valuable time that went into this. So I'm just gonna, again, after taking in everything I saw and looking through the plan as a first go around, just give the things that jumped out at me. And I think the first thing that jumped out at me is that we're really leading with the portrait of a graduate. And something that Dr. Dodoni described when you talked about working with someone, collaborating with someone who you thought was very different from you, and at the end of the day wanted the same things. I see that. Excuse me. I see that on a regular basis here in our boardroom. There's so many conversations, discussions, debates that take place in this boardroom with people who are very passionate and often differ from each other. But I cannot think of a single example where people did not actually have the same goal. We might not always agree how to get there, but I think that's a really important point to make, and I'm really glad that these realizations came out of this collaboration. I think it's very important. So going to our core beliefs, I love that it starts with belonging. None of these other things are achievable without everyone here feeling like they belong. So I really appreciate that. I am going to talk a moment about something that I have spoken a great deal about as a board member, and the reason I'm here, which is supporting the whole child. Yeah, if I had written this myself, I probably would have led with that. But this is, again, a wonderful collaboration, and I appreciate that it is an important focus of the proposed plan. One thing I do observe, and I just want to make sure that when we're talking about the whole child, that we're truly talking about the whole child. And that includes policies and educational practices that consider and support the whole child, thereby hopefully reducing the need for goal number 3, which is the behavioral health supports. You can never eliminate that need because children do come here from different circumstances, and every child needs to be supported. But I always like to look at it as our job to create a classroom where every need of the child is being met and not just focused on the skill that we want them to learn today. And goal number 2, absenteeism. I think one thing that came out of COVID, and I am a board member who worked really hard to get our schools open. I was very vocal about that. But we can't undo what's been done. And I truly believe that it has caused a lot of people, it's caused people in the workforce, but it's also caused children to start to question, why am I here? What am I doing? And so, if you ask a student in first grade and sixth grade and ninth grade and beyond, why am I here? Some students are going to answer, if they answer honestly, I'm here to get A's. I'm here to achieve. I have a focus. I know where I'm going. Some students are here to say, I'm here to see my friends. This is where I belong. I have this. I have a need for friendship. I'm here to play my sport. The list could go on about why students are here, but a lot of them aren't. And I think we need to create a system so that students say, I'm here to learn. I'm here because what I do in class has meaning for me and matters to me. And so it goes into the educational practices, which Dr. Bedell, I know we've had a lot of discussions about, and that's what we're intending to use the blueprint for, I truly believe. I just had to talk a little bit about that because I want to make sure that when we're talking about the whole child, that we truly are talking about the whole child and not just fixing problems after they come up. But beyond that, I think it's again, a first go through. I'm pleased with what I see, and I truly appreciate the input of the community on this important work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Corkadell.
Thank you, President Silkworth. I got to say this is outstanding presentation and the content equally so. I wanted to first just point out a couple of things that stood out for me was when we had the slide on the community surveys. 7,900 of our family, staff, community members, etc. 13,000 students. I think that speaks, definitely demonstrates that our students definitely have an interest in their own success, and they want to take ownership in their future future as it relates to education and in general in their lives. And so this is an opportunity and a space where we should be embracing, leaning into, because that's truly the best opportunity that I see out of all of this is to be able to be a partner and to truly take us and form a family that's really going to matter. And so your impact is already begun in education. And your career has not quite yet officially started. And that's amazing. I will say this morning, I did have a chance not to hear everything on the County Council's meeting with Dr. Bedell, President Silkworth, and members of staff. But there was a portion of it that kind of stood out, and I made an immediate connection as I was listening to this presentation. And it had to do with Dr. Bedell, well, how is the school district going to demonstrate through data that you're actually making enough progress that our taxpayer investment dollars are actually going somewhere productive? And as I was listening to this, and looking at even just the basic core definitions and reminding us of all the definitions that are involved in a strategic plan, I came to the conclusion that this is what they should be hearing about. They should receive their own presentation after we've adopted it, and or a variation of it. We haven't taken the vote yet. And maybe even in future years, if we can't do it this year, associate so that the public and their representatives who make the budget decisions both at the state and at the local level can actually see what each line item is going to accomplish, not just in Blueprint, but in our district to meet our students' needs. And so I think there's an opportunity there that we could take will value and elevate, if not now, in the very near future. I did want to know, as it relates to implementation and monitoring, when you talked about teams, that priority teams, is there going to be a separate group who's going to kind of connect with the teams as it relates to implementation? I know we're not far enough along. You've still got to develop scorecards and everything. But I do think when I was listening and trying to get an understanding of where they're coming from, those who have to fund us, because a lot of this isn't interactive. It's a living document, meaning that it takes a lot of moving parts and a lot of moving partners. And the partnership of funding is definitely real. And so I was just wondering if there is a little more expansion on that, like when we would see that and what that would possibly look like in the vision. Because I am too a very logic data person. Drive people crazy with it occasionally.
Yeah, so I think a couple things. One, I think it's important to note that there will be a lead for all of these priority groups, and Shannon and Anna and a few folks will get together to develop these teams, right? Put them together. I don't think they'll just be folks from within central office. We'll reach out to the community, get people to take part. So that's part of it, right? The second thing I would say around the priority teams is that they too could change over time. They could be fluid, and so people may come in and out of those priority teams. I think the most important thing, though, is that we have them and that we'll be tracking data. And Anna talked about it, but we can't emphasize it enough. Those scorecards are critical to make sure that we're getting, as we heard today, a return on our investment, and that we're doing exactly what we said we would do. And if we find something that says, hey, we're heading in the wrong direction, the scorecard will identify that and help us to make shifts. Those priority teams will help us to put that together at the beginning and throughout the process.
So too often, government starts out great, does their input, and maybe even gets to the first report. And then it sort of goes into this maintenance. And that is where I think people constantly question the trust. And what I will say is that not just the process, and the words, but the actual actions taken by members of the community to present and to create ownership is unique and something we have yet to see. So it being in its first, I think it's important to note that, because people talk a lot and don't always follow through. And follow through is the core of trust as it relates to taking actions, enterprise level projects, and successful implementation, which all leads to that going from good to great, making sure that each and every single student is able to be successful in all the words that I could never iterate compared to this, most certainly. So I want to thank you for expanding on that, because I really do think that is the difference between being marginally successful, somewhat successful, and truly succeeding as a team cohesively. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Did you
Dr. Bedell, do you want to talk a little bit? I don't want to put him on the spot, but Dr. Bedell has made it very clear that it won't sit on a shelf, because we will be coming to the board to do public updates.
Yeah, I mean, the way that you do this, you pretty much do a semi-annual update, and then you do a summative update. Generally, when you get to the summative update, you have all of your data. So now you're able to populate a scorecard that is presented to the school board and to the community. And of course, that scorecard will live on the website. So when Mr. Mosier talked about having links, right there, you'll be able to click on that link and easily access the scorecard. And so that allows for us to stay true to the plan. It's just a simple model. We had never had a scorecard in my previous school district, so we were the first to create one. And because it forced us to really focus on what we said we were going to do in the strategic plan, I think the results have spoken for themselves, and I think they'll speak for themselves here as we get to implementation.
Our State Board Association does that, and I will tell you that our staff appreciates it too, because that accountability, when you look at it holistically, that's the edge that everybody needs to be successful. You're rarely successful in a vacuum. And so that is one of the ways that we make sure. And so to see us take a much larger organization and be able to implement strategies that I know are successful in implementation of long-range strategic plans is amazing. And I'll just conclude, Dr. Dedoni, I just want to tell you that your entire testimony, I was thinking, like, how do I parse that out and share that with my state equity committee? Because we're in the process of actually doing our next level training, train the trainer, as a group in retreats. And I was thinking of some of the struggles that we were experiencing and how well you put that together of why it's important, what we're doing, and why we need to do that. And we need that in every single facet of our life, in every single school, in every single household, in every single HOA and community. And if we all just kept to that focus, I know we would be able to recognize how great we really are and can be in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Corcado. Ms. Shalheim.
Wow, what an incredible just process you all went through and work product you produced. I'm very, very impressed. This presentation was incredible. I just want to thank all of you for your role and your time and your passion and your love that you put into this document and into this work. And the fact that it was so student focused too is everything, because that's why we're all here. I don't have any questions as of yet. I just wanted to commend you for this amazing work product. It's so easy to follow, and so I think it'll be very digestible and easy for our community to see what we're all trying to do here. The fact that equity is woven throughout, the fact that I love the portrait of a graduate. I think it's fantastic. I can't really pull this apart because it's all so well done. And the commitments to equity throughout, I think, are so important. And then the way you were able to tie everything to the blueprint and also to the Maryland report card will give this this document. It'll be able to stand up, for years to come, stand the test of time. And then also tying it back to the space that our students are learning into with the building and the sustaining our future and the quality of our facilities. Like it all matters, all of it, and I know we're getting ready to do the next iteration of whatever the MGT study is going to be called. Yeah. And so that, ties into that. I listened to every word of the presentations given this morning. So that was a nice several hour thing to listen to before coming in and then diving into this, and it all ties together. Y'all did a good job. But yeah, I need to digest, I think. But I just most of tonight is really about hearing you and getting to hold it and touch it and feel it and read it, because it's been hyped for quite some time, and I know that this has been a multi-month process. And just the way you all came together from all walks of life, from all backgrounds, from all points of view, to create this document and for it to gel in this way, I just find that very, very impressive. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for all your work, and it will not be done in vain. Like this is the end of the beginning, but just the beginning. What really will matter is how we execute this equitably and how we measure that progress. So, thank you so much. Really appreciate all of you.
Mr. Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Silkworth. So I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to say that both Dr. Tobin and I had the privilege of working alongside all of these amazing committee members, and I was very grateful for that opportunity to work along all of you, reading through the dozens of goals and working hard to narrow them down. And I'm so excited to see the finished product in front of me. And I always tell Dr. Bedell this, but I won't be here next year and beyond. But I am really excited to see how him and his team implement all of this and turn it into a reality.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn. Ms. Frank.
Yes, thank you. I just have some brief questions on the process. I was glad to hear that words like effective collaborator being the most important aspect were used and that everyone's voice was truly valued. So I guess in that understanding, how were collaborations finalized? What was the process? Was there a vote? Did everybody just sort of agree to what the talking points and the bullet points were, or how did that go?
Thank you for that question. It's a very complex, to be quite honest with you, because we had 70 steering committee members coming from a lot of different perspectives, and so what we do, and I try to explain this during the presentation as well. Lots of revisiting and iterations, quite honest. And so when we got down to that kind of refinement stage, we were able to give it over to cabinet, and then in cabinet was able to put some final touches on this as well. So lots of times the way it would work is, we would have 12 different posters. My team, Jess Wilson, who is a member of Inside Education. I don't think Jess is here, but Jess is also a member of the she's a parent of 2 children in Anne Arundel County. And so she and I would go back and synthesize the information and make sure that the words that were selected embodied the essence of the conversations.
And if anything was vehemently opposed, was that included, or was it like a majority rules kind of a thing? How did, if there were vast disagreements in what should go into these topics, how were they handled?
I don't know that I can say that there was really vast disagreements that were brought up at any of the steering committee meetings. It was a pretty overall collegial. I think the ground rules that we established at the beginning, respecting each other's opinions and viewpoints, I think was very evident, and the consensus brought us to the points that we came to. So we didn't really have contention like that.
Go a little deeper on what Pete is describing. And so there were tables of folks, and you could walk around and hear disagreement, for lack of a better term, on language. You'd walk away and come back 5 minutes later and you saw the group moving forward with different language. And so what would happen is at the end of the night, Pete and his team would gather the information, synthesize it, as he says, and for the next steering committee meeting, he'd come back and say, here's what we captured. Is this still what we want to, is this still what you described? Is this what you want to move forward? And so those documents would go back to the tables, and folks would really, really have some deep conversations around it. So I think it was a very collaborative experience. And I think not everyone, I think if they were being honest, would say they got everything they wanted in terms of the language and terminology, but they were heard. And the essence of what everyone was getting at is captured in this document.
And were the members of the committee given this document before it was public?
We sent it to them, I think, earlier, but I will tell you, up until 5 till 6, we were making changes to the document, and you all will give us feedback, and before Wednesday, we might make additional changes to the document. again, it's a living document, so there could be changes that happen along the process in the next 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Tobin.
Thank you. Yes, as Mr. Lynn mentioned, I was fortunate to be a board member involved in this process, and I want to extend my thanks to everyone involved and also to Pete and to Mr. Dickerson. Having been the facilitator myself in some of these settings, I know what it takes to do this, and it was extraordinarily well done, so thank you. And as we've heard from a few folks, people brought their real thoughts to this. I think to sort of respond, I think, to a couple of my colleagues' questions from my perspective, having been in the room, one measure of the fact that it was well facilitated was that the individual discussions in the groups functioned very well as what you sort of, I'm always aiming for as somebody when I'm facilitating, which is a really self-regulating organism, is the way I think about it, right? So the ground rules were such, and people took them seriously, and they were modeled by the facilitators in such a way that it was a conversation. It wasn't a debate, it was a conversation, at least as I experienced and as I overheard when I would be walking around the room. And so it was less about people coming in with sort of predetermined list of I've got to get X and I've got to get Y, but rather focusing on the question at hand, giving their genuine input into that question. And then, as has been noted, it wasn't a single moment in time where there was some equivalent of a vote and you either won or you lost. It was one iteration, a gathering of what had been said, and a representation to the members of the committee to evaluate yet again, did that capture what you were thinking? My colleagues know in other contexts when I was president, I said to them, consensus is not simply getting what you want or not getting what you want. If you've genuinely achieved consensus, everybody's going to walk out of the room having hopefully gotten something that's really important to them, and recognizing that maybe something else that was super important to them wasn't the critical thing that they were going to focus their energies on. And so that was my sense of how the process worked. And there genuinely was a real representation of the vast diversity of views and opinions that exist in this county. Those voices were all there. Nobody, from what I could see, was there simply to show that we had certain people there. Everybody was there to be a part of the process. That was my sense. And I congratulate you on that, because otherwise this would be meaningless. This would be nothing but a piece of paper, and my sense is it's not. I also want to thank Dr. Bedell for always being at those meetings, because I think that gave to the committee a sense that this really mattered. This wasn't, again, a pro forma, okay, we got to make a committee and we got to get them to say something about this, and then we got to be able to say they said this, and then we're done. I mean, that's a sort of flip way to talk about it, but that's often the view, right, of what it means to put a committee like this together. And Dr. Bedell reiterated over and over again to the committee what has been said tonight. This isn't his plan. This isn't the board's plan. I mean, technically it's the board's plan because we either adopt it or we don't, but it's not a plan for us. It is a plan driven by the community and for the community, with the goal of improving student outcomes in every possible way. and growing the structures that we need. So I think that was tremendously valuable, and I thank you, Dr. Bedell, for that. I think that made a huge difference in committee members feeling it was worth their time. Nobody was wasting their time, and that is core to building trust. If you don't start there, nothing else is going to work. I will say that just a few comments. Obviously, there are some goals here that don't necessarily have specific numbers attached to them. We discussed that. So I assume, to Ms. Harding's point, I may not be quite as nerdy about data as you are, but I appreciate a good measurable outcome, you know. So I'm assuming that when those scorecards are set up, we'll be seeing, you know, in something like under supporting the whole child goal 1, increase student and family awareness of access to and so forth. We will be seeing things that demonstrate for us what that means, how we're determining that, all of those things. And I assume that will be.
You will. I think it's important. I'm glad you brought that up. We will not only look at retrieving qualitative data, we will be retrieving quantitative data. Generally, with a lot of this work, it's a lot of quantitative things. We have the survey that is a part of the ESSA house that the state puts out. But I think for us, we're working on a true stakeholder survey that will give us more information, that could give us more of the qualitative data to address whether some of these things that we're doing are working. So you will get almost a hybrid type model of a scorecard that will capture both of those data points.
Yes, and that's excellent, and I think that's what's needed. And again, to Ms. Corkadell's point, will be what builds trust in the community that this is real and that we're attending to it. And I would assume as well, in those kinds of surveys, if lessons are learned about, gosh, there's a better way to communicate this, there's a better way to ensure that people know they have access to X, Y, and Z, that too will be brought as part of the reporting on this. So we see, you know, what we always want to see, and, you know, has been a little frustrating about state assessments, for example. It's one thing to get the data, it's another to get data and have it be usable to improve how you move forward. So I know that will happen, and I'm really looking forward to it. A couple of other comments. One thing that I have always thought is so incredibly important about having a plan like this that lives and breathes and people know exists and everybody is aware of, is that it can drive everything we do in one way or another. And so I'm thinking of, just for example, in some of my work as an accreditor and the assessments I've done, you know, it's some of the most successful systems I've ever seen really make use of their strategic plan in their hiring process, in their coaching process. And it is my hope that insofar as that can be a part of the way we grow our administrators and our educators in their practice, this is a very practical way to focus in on where the gaps are, where the issues are. Those of you who have been administrators, those of you who have been principals, department chairs, all sorts of things, that is, I think, where you really get life in this and where you get a kind of cohesion in being on the same page. And I don't know, Dr. Bedell, if that makes sense to you, but that's just what I've seen in my evaluations.
Yeah, I think Mr. Dickinson spoke to it a little bit earlier, where we talked about, even as we do presentations, how do we make sure that people see that everything that we're doing is our North Star is hitting these goals that we have in here, really ensuring that the profile of a student becomes realized through everything that we do. And so we have to, everything we do, we have to be able to say, here's how it connects to our strategic plan, right? There's alignment. And I think that's what you're saying. We have to have alignment with everything that we do. How do we recruit? How do we use this as a selling point to tell people this is the direction we're going? And this is, and it's a very reasonable and obtainable plan that you come and be a part of our system. We ultimately believe we'll be able to hit these goals and priorities. So I mean, it's the format that has worked for me prior to coming here that you just articulated. And it will, and so in terms of how we implement this, nothing's going to change.
And I think another aspect of trust in that along those lines is not just the trust of the community, the families, the students, but also the trust of our employees. And I think that if we are accountable, and it's clear we are accountable across the board on this, that, in my opinion, and one of the reasons I think the really successful systems I've evaluated do this, is that it, just like with the strategic planning steering committee, people want to know their time isn't being wasted. They want to know there isn't some initiative this year that 6 months later is gone. And everybody has to sort of pretend, I mean, again, I'm being real here, has to pretend they're doing it, and then now it's gone away. Because that's where institutions crumble, that's where organizations crumble, that's where things fall apart. So I think that is one of the other really critical parts of this, is having that map for everyone and knowing that it's real. And finally, with regard to budgeting, when the budget is put forth, when the board discusses the budget, the board has adopted over the last few years setting up priorities and working with those priorities. I think it would be possibly very valuable when we produce, and it's just a thought, obviously not my purview, but when the pamphlet, so to speak, is produced, that is the short form of the budget, right? Not the endless binder that we all take home. Laying it out according to this, I think, could have huge value for the public, for our funders, for everyone, and just being able to show, priority 1, goal X, blah, blah, blah.
Alignment. That's all. Everything you're saying is alignment.
Yep.
So to me, even when you think about the superintendent's evaluation, it has to be tied to this.
Yep.
So, if we're talking about a scorecard, it's got to be tied to this, right? And then that trickles throughout the system.
And I know I've taken a lot of time, but one last thing with regard to this being a living document, which I really appreciate, because I think that just has to be the case. We can't lock ourselves into something and, God forbid, another pandemic or something, say, well, too bad, we have a plan, and I'm not saying we would, but I do assume that whatever adjustments occur, we will be very transparent about it with the community, and we will demonstrate the basis for those adjustments, right? So there is no concern that somewhere away from public view, somebody, I mean, the old joke was to draw targets around arrows, right? When people would sort of say, oh, look, we made that goal. we just created it. So, there will be a constant communication with the public should any of those changes occur.
No, I think 100% Dr. Riddell talked about it, but also it's the reason we had Bob come up to introduce the idea of communication. There will be constant communication, not just on how we update you twice a year, maybe more,
right,
but constantly through communications and the website. We'll be updating it, and we'll let folks know. The scorecard is critical. If the scorecard tells us we're heading in the wrong direction, we'll shift gears, and we'll let it be known that we're doing so.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I'm truly appreciative. I'm appreciative of the time of everyone who came to those meetings. And those were long, engaged meetings, though the food was great. Let me just be clear. And I also extend my thanks to Ms. McCrary, who was very much behind the scenes, but we all somehow showed up and everything was just the way it should be. So thank you very much, and to all those involved. But thank you for leading this work, Mr. Dickerson. Thank you, Dr. Bedell, for getting out of the way and letting the community speak, and to our consultant, who I think provided exactly what was needed. So thank you very much.
Mr. President, if I can, before you make your remarks, you heard Mr. Mosier come up and talk about some of the things that we're going to be doing here, short-term communication. We also have begun to have conversations about getting some dates to basically go on a teaching and learning tour around the county to educate our community on the strategic plan. So it's hard to hold folks accountable when you don't really understand what it is that they're supposed to be holding, us accountable for. So we're working on some dates for that to take place, probably early during the first semester of the upcoming school year.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell. So you actually answered one of my questions. One of my questions was, how will we present this plan to our student, teachers, families, and staff? So you answered that. So a little president's privilege here. I have a question or two, but I have some comments. I have a tendency to just take notes about what I'm hearing. I'm trying to be a good listener. So I look at the vision, which says that everyone can belong, grow, and succeed. And I looked at that word, everyone. You notice it doesn't say students. It says everyone. Our students, one of their issues, they're kind of stressed, but so are our teachers, so are our parents. And so this includes everyone. And this is a fluid document, a community plan, a living document, a roadmap, a 5-year plan. And I was struck by the fact that there were over 20,000 people who responded to surveys. Talk about inclusion. And I loved it when it was said to be a delicious plan. So, Dr. Bedell, we have a delicious strategic plan. And I was struck by the comments. This was us working on this. Us. That us is not just the steering committee. I think that us is every single one of us that value every single one of our children, our parents, our families. You're asking us to look for the meaning because it was made by the heart. I truly believe that. And I can tell you that we will be looking at the meaning, looking in that context. You talked about respect. Look for the wisdom. That's something that we clearly have to do. Ms. Chandler, you are right when you say, when in doubt, pretty much go check with the students and you're going to get the answers that you need. The core beliefs here, I believe, represent students' needs, and it is a guide for what we need to do. So I believe this document has been created from the heart, and so therefore it must be evaluated the same way. Portrait of the graduate. So earlier this afternoon, I wrote down, if we graduate students who are future ready, effective collaborators, critical thinkers, curious learners, and empathetic community members, that will be the moment when we can say, Dr. Bedell, that we have achieved greatness. We will have gone from good to great. I can't tell you how grateful I am for each and every one of you and anybody that was involved in this, but also how grateful I am for each and every one of our students and our teachers and our staff. We are so blessed in Anne Arundel County to have such great people. And it is true, the portrait of a graduate that starts at a very early age. you can't send them to me as a freshman and expect me to fix it all. Doesn't work that way. I'll do my best, but it does start at a very early age. And I also heard the comment, portrait of a collaborator. That's the basis of my educational philosophy, is to be able to sit across the table and agree to disagree, but collaborate. I think the priorities in this plan are spot on. They're drivers of the strategic plan. And when there was discussion about, I'm going to tell you the why. Well, telling us the why and everybody else the why is very critical, and it's very wise. The making connections, we have the Maryland blueprint. We have to make sure that we're aligned to the blueprint. We have to make sure that we are meeting the demands of the blueprint. And I also heard someone say there's beauty in the whole process. That to me was amazing. Challenging moments in my mind. There was some discussion about challenging moments. The challenging moments are the moments which allow us to belong, to grow, and succeed. And then I saw the words focused, disciplined, and accountable. I just have to say this, for me, it's an amazing ending to a long day, Dr. Bedell. We did have the opportunity earlier this morning and afternoon to collaborate with our wonderful stakeholders, the county council. And it was long, but it was extremely profitable. And I mentioned to several people what I saw in terms of the dynamics of that meeting were absolutely amazing. It's been a long time, if ever, that I've seen the kind of rapport and relationships in a positive way that I saw today with the collaboration and the communication between our county council folks and Dr. Bedell and staff. And so I did have maybe one question, and that question was, all of our schools develop a strategic plan. So can we talk a little bit about how each of our schools will be able to take this living document to create that plan for the schools, so that our students can achieve the goals that they want to?
So all of our schools, they have a responsibility for putting together a school improvement plan. And so once this is launched, and when we have our next principals meeting after the board, hopefully takes action in a positive way on Wednesday, my first job is to, at the next principals meeting, break the strategic plan down to the building administrators. We know that they have multiple plans. So if you are a school that is considered low performing by the state, there's a plan that you have to do to adhere to what state requirements are. You have your initial school improvement plan. Now you have a strategic plan. So we as a team have already talked about not wanting our principals to have to utilize trying to figure out how to do multiple plans. A lot of what they already have to do is already incorporated in here. That's the reason why we have the alignment to the state assessment system. What is it called? The ESSA house. We have alignment to the blueprint within this strategic plan. So we believe, again, alignment is critical. Everything we thought about, and that's the reason why we involved Shannon Pugh in the process, to make sure that we have alignment so that they don't have multiple documents. So we'll be able to work with them in a seamless manner to make sure that their plans are also embracing the goals that we want to accomplish on an annual basis in this strategic plan.
Thank you, Dr. Bedell. So I can't tell you how proud I am to have been a part of this. And I can't tell you how proud we are of each and every one of you out there. I thank you for your leadership. And young man, it's music to my ears to hear that you want to be an educator. We certainly look forward to that. I thank you for taking the time to help with this strategic plan. So having said that, it's been a great presentation, and we will be taking a look at this, I believe, on Wednesday. And so once again, thank you so much. I think there are still some more cake over there and some refreshments. So anybody wants to partake, please do so. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.